Just for a moment, I want to mention a few things about a couple of groups within the pre-wrath position. Differing groups that believe a similar system, but they disagree with each other and try to keep themselves separate from each other. And every theological umbrella, within that theological umbrella, you'll have differing groups. And so that's not a strange thing. I just want to point out something I've noticed within the pre-wrath group. There's two major groups that I've noticed that have strong disagreements amongst each other, but at the same time, they're trying to teach a form of the pre-wrath rapture. And that is the non-King James only Prewrathians and the King James only Prewrathians. Your non-King James only, like Alan Kirshner, Chris White, Charles Cooper, go back to the early 90s, Marvin Rosenthal, Robert Van Kampen, those fellows, the non-King James only Prewrathians, they have noticed something in their studies that the King James only Prewrathians have not noticed. And that is that there are verses and texts within the King James Bible that clearly teach a pre-trib rapture. I dealt with this recently concerning Alan Kirshner. He responded to a video that I posted on this channel about the fact that I believe that the 24 elders prove a pre-trib rapture. The 24 elders found in Revelation 4 and 5. Now, I believe it clearly teaches a pre-trib rapture. He says it doesn't, but the way he dealt with it on his blog and his response to my video was he just simply corrected the King James Bible. Corrected it, so to speak. He said the King James Bible is mistranslated, and so therefore, if it's translated like the modern versions, then you'll see that the 24 elders are not an argument for the pre-trib rapture. Now, he never said that they are an argument for the pre-wrath. He basically said at the end of it that we're not sure who they are, so we don't really know what the answer to this question is in the sense of who are the 24 elders. But he did say, because the King James Bible is mistranslated, you cannot use it as a pre-trib argument. But if you leave the King James text alone, it is teaching a pre-trib rapture. And he noticed that. And he unwittingly proved that. Because he didn't take the King James text and interpret it properly. He changed it. Because if you interpret the text correctly, the King James text, you just interpret it as it is on the page in a King James Bible, then it clearly teaches a pre-trib rapture. They want the day of Christ to be the day of the Lord in 2 Thessalonians 2, because they feel like that bolsters their position. But they don't want to go with the day of Christ in the King James Bible. They want to change it to the day of Christ, because that would better fit the pre-wrath position. And so what that clearly teaches me is the non-King James only Prewrathians have discovered that the King James Bible is essentially a pre-trib book because it has pre-trib text all through it. And so instead of interpreting it properly, we must change what it says or discard it and use a modern version because that would fit the pre-wrath position better. Now, that brings me to the King James only group of Prewrathians. They use a King James Bible, but they're not seeing what the non-King James Prewrathians have seen. The pre-trib text in a King James Bible. What the King James only Prewrathians will do is either, and I've watched them do it, they'll either just skim over the text. For instance, I listened to one of them not long ago teach on the 24 elders and completely ignored the fact that they were crowned. Completely. He actually made the statement that he believed that they were elders, pastors within the New Testament church age. However, he ignored the fact, glossed over the fact that they were crowned. He even went to 1 Peter 5 to prove that these elders were pastors within the New Testament church age. But he completely ignored the verse, I believe it's verse 4, that says when the chief shepherd appears, the pastors get their crowns. And so he's not even trying to interpret properly the King James text. He's ignoring portions of the King James text that give weight to the pre-trib position. Or either he is ignoring it, or he just can't see it. He can't see the problem. Either he is ignoring the fact that the day of Christ in 2 Thessalonians 2 can't be the rapture, or he just doesn't understand what he's reading on the page, which leads me to believe if the non-King James, the Prewrathians, understand that the King James Bible has pre-trib verses in it, and they need to change it to fit so the Bible will fit their position, then they're noticing something that the King James Only Prewrathians aren't noticing. And I've come to this conclusion: the non-King James Only Prewrathians are smarter, more intelligent, and more logical than the King James Only Prewrathians. So the King James Only Prewrathians are dumber than the non-King James Only Prewrathians, because they can't see, while they're using a pre-tribulational Bible, they cannot see that it's a pre-tribulational Bible, and they're still trying to teach the pre-wrath position. At least the non-King James Prewrathians have noticed, if you're going to teach a pre-wrath rapture, you better change the text of the King James Bible, because it teaches a pre-trib position. And so for those of you who are pre-trib and you love the old King James Bible and you're going to stick with the old text, and this is what I stand on, what I believe, be comforted in the fact that the King James Bible, the non-King James Prewrathians have helped it and accomplished proving and validating that the King James Bible is a pre-tribulational book. We're just waiting on the King James Only Prewrathians to actually understand the text they hold in their hands, believe the Bible they hold in their hands, and go back to teaching the truth, which is a pre-tribulational rapture.